If memory serves me correctly, and even if it doesn't, Richard's mother would have packed enough Mott's apple juice, roast beef, and turkey sandwiches, pears and apples, Oreo cookies, and paper napkins for the entire senior class at Wheatley High. But this was no class trip, and there were just 4 heedless boys piling into my 1956 Ford Fairlane at 11 p.m. on a cold November night. Recently painted British racing green, $29.95 at Earl Scheib on Jericho Turnpike, the Fairlane was an underpowered automatic transmission junker with tan naugahyde seats and a cracked dashboard. Something local dads would drive back and forth to the train station. What my father called a beater. For me, it beat the hell out of taking the school bus or hitching rides, or worse, being driven anywhere by my parents. It was freedom. I suspect Mr. Gaynor gathered us around the oval pine table in their Albertson dining room, unfolded his Rand McNally roadmap, and showed us, inch by excruciating inch, the way, the LIE to the BQE to the Verrazano Narrows and across Staten Island to the Goethals Bridge, and then the long Jersey Turnpike. And aside from an unscheduled stop at the Joyce Carey rest area, so John, the most mechanical of this most unmechanical crew, could jerry-rig the hanging, spark-spinning muffler, we headed straight down 95, rumbling through darkly industrial Baltimore at 3 a.m., arriving in D.C. an hour later. The melancholy line of mourners under hazy street lamps leading to the rotunda was miles long. A cop on horseback looked at the heap, leaned over and peered in at us, shook his head, and said we'd never make it on time. Twisting around and pointing behind, he suggested we drive out to Arlington. I have no idea how we found our way out there, but we drove through the cemetery gates before dawn, 4 boys shivering into the dewy lawn. We were there before the groundskeepers would place a carpet of fake grass around the dark rectangular hole, before soldiers staked out their posts, before Secret Service men in dark suits kicked us out of the low branches of a tree, before the crowds of adults elbowed their way in front of us, before the Caissons, Nehru, Haile Selassie, Charles de Gaulle, his high hat high above the cold crowd. It has always mystified me that our typically overprotective suburban parents had allowed us to leave our safe homes that evening. 4 coddled boys with combined social IQs too low to pass the American history regents, piling into that green jalopy and heading out for a rendezvous with history. In 5 years, I would be married. In 6 years, become a dad, crooning Chris Christopherson's cautionary words about freedom to my baby boy. Decades would pass before I would teach each of my 7 teenagers to drive. But some 55 years later, peering back through a lifetime of computer screens and windscreens, rumbling across endless highways and back roads, engines purring, engines failing, I know in my dad's soul that there are no satisfying answers to the really important whys of this life. And as a writer, I know that the story is not the story. The story is just a vehicle to drive us deeper into the unspoken, real story, as it is here. With only hazy context and lost time as a roadmap, this tale is not simply about 4 dumb boys attending a slain president's funeral. The real story is about the moment I gripped my fingers around the plastic steering wheel of that 1956 Ford with its grossly underpowered engine, its hideous paint job, and pressed the gas pedal to the floor, driving us deep into the night and those first dark truths about the inscrutable, unimaginable world we'd be entering.